It's going to be a really challenging day to film. Welcome to a cold, miserable, rainy Isle of Man. I'm really selling it to you, ain't I? Let's go explore. Yeah, so let me tell you a little bit more about the Isle of Man. It's a very small island, actually, nestled between Great Britain and Ireland. It's only about 33 miles long and 13 miles wide. And there are about 85,000 people on the island. The majority of them live here in the capital, Douglas. And 40% of the island is unoccupied. It is a British Crown dependency. So together with the bailiwick of Jersey and the bailiwick of Guernsey, the Isle of Man is one of 3 Crown dependencies. It was never part of the United Kingdom, and it isn't part of the United Kingdom at the moment. Here you've got Tynwald, a government building here. So Tynwald is of course the government of the Isle of Man. It is the oldest continuous parliament in the world. Now you'll remember when I was in Iceland, we saw Þingvellir, which claimed to be the oldest parliament in the world, and Tynwald and Þingvellir basically stem from exactly the same Norse word. So traditionally there have been a lot of Norse, Celtic and English influences on the island, and of late also some South African influence. A very prominent bank in South Africa. They bizarrely have a branch here, and Africa is our home, we drive her growth. Coincidence? Maybe not, because as you may or may not know, the Isle of Man is well known for being a tax haven and an offshore banking destination. In addition, insurance and online gambling are key contributors to economic growth in this part of the world. As I'm hiding from the weather, just over here, whilst I wait for the rain to subside a bit, I've got a wonderful view of Douglas here on my own. So I'm always a glass half full person, always looking at the positives, and I'll never get the opportunity to see Douglas like this again. Misty day over the Irish Sea. There's a bit of magic in everything in life. Remember that. It's going to be a really challenging day to film. We'll just have to work with what we got. But first impressions, it does feel like an English kind of city, like any city in England, any town. It's got that vibe. Same kind of shops, W.H. Smith, TK Maxx. Yeah, you got Marks and Spencer's, and you've got the classic English red phone booth as well. Isle of Man Bank. Apart from that, it really does feel like any other town in England or a random place somewhere in Great Britain. It's got the same feel about it. It's even got a Regent Street, Union Jacks. Yeah, the architecture, the shops, the familiar street, high street names, all makes you think you are somewhere in Great Britain, but you're not. This is not part of it. And some more banks here on this side of town. So yeah, we got some more information about the city. Nelson Street. So area of a town dominated by the island's finance industry, which began to expand as a result of the abolition of Manx surtax in 1960. And here you've got information about Athol Street as well, often considered the centre of the island's finance sector. Originally built in the first part of the 19th century as superior residences, the houses were gradually converted for use by professionals. And this is Athol Street, the main financial street here in Douglas on the Isle of Man. And this is where the magic happens. It's eerily quiet today, of course, because it's Sunday. Here you can see quite a few prominent banks, and it's actually got quite a nice mix of colourful buildings over here as well. Athol Street. I don't want to make a controversial prediction, but it looks like the rain has stopped. I've even got my sunglasses out. Let's hope that the weather continues like this, because it was absolutely horrendous earlier. And we've arrived as well here at the Jubilee Clock Tower, Queen Victoria, and colourful dolphin here. Summer 22 will forever be remembered for the invasion of colourful and uniquely designed dolphins which have taken over the Isle of Man. Here you'll see lots of people on motorcycles and scooters, and the Isle of Man is of course famous for the TT races, the most famous motorcycle race in the world. And you can see a lot of locals using that form of transport as well. I'd imagine it's a very nice way to see or get around this small island. And we are also here at the Promenade of beautiful Douglas. Absolutely brilliant to walk around here. There you can see the Tower of Refuge, which we'll talk about later. So the name Isle of Man, I should have probably told you earlier, that is derived from Manannan, which was a Celtic sea god. And here you can also see a lot of Isle of Man flags. It's got 3 legs against a red background. The 3 legs is known as a triskelion, and they all bent at the knee, and they've got golden spurs, and they conjoined at the hip area or the upper thigh area. And the 3 legs refer to the 3 kings of Man in the 13th century. But it's a very interesting flag, certainly very distinct, and I don't have a list of favorite flags in the world, but this is absolutely one of them if I did have one. So I promised I'd give you some more information there about the Tower of Refuge, and here it is. Thanks to Douglas or Isle of Man Tourist Council or Tourist Information, you can read up all about it here. Certainly the key dates here is November 1830 and St. George's Day 1832. So what happened on the 20th of November 1830 is the ship, the St. George, was wrecked on that isle there, St. Mary's Isle or Conister Rock, and that inspired the building of the refuge over there. And here we've got a little garden with some seating areas, beautiful flowers, and a plaque that says there but not there, so that will refer to undoubtedly the soldiers who lost their lives in World War I and World War II, as highlighted by the poppies here. And actually all across the city that you'll see some of these benches decorated with the poppies. And over here, this refers to that shipwreck on the 20th of November 1830. You can see there Sir William Hillary and his volunteer crew go to the aid of the stricken St. George on this memorial over here. There's the sea terminal where all the ferries from Liverpool and Ireland, if you were traveling from those parts of the world by ferry, that's where you will get to. And here's another beautiful garden area here. Seagull decided to visit. It's a colourful butterfly, mosaic. And almost all of the buildings here, which you'll see around the Promenade area, almost all of them are hotels. And so I mentioned a bit about the economy of the Isle of Man earlier. Tourism as well is of course a key contributor, certainly for people here in Douglas, but also in other parts of the island. Right. Look at this. Beautiful gardens were decimated by Storm Barra. We're working hard to reinstate them, but this will take some time. So spare a penny for them. But I have to say, Storm Barra or not, the gardens are actually still an absolute pleasure to walk in. In big white letters there against the cliff you can read Electric Railway, which is one of the ways to explore the island. If you're ever here, you can buy, I believe, a day or a week transport ticket as well to explore all the sites that the island has, and it's probably the best way to get around the island. Not for me though, because I only got a couple of days here, so, and I'd rather show you a bit of Douglas walking around. And some more gardens here. Not as many flowers in this particular one, but absolutely still stunning surroundings. I thought the TT races were over and done with. And here is the iconic Gaiety Theatre and Opera House. First opened in the year 1900. And up until the First World War, it had a lot of success. But due to the effects of war and a decline in tourism on the island, the rest of the 20th century was a difficult ordeal for the theatre. And I've read that in the 1970s it was one signature away from being destroyed, and the Isle of Man government eventually intervened, and I believe they took over the restoration of the theatre to its full glory. And today you can see a huge variety of shows and other forms of entertainment here in the theatre, and it's an absolutely beautiful, glorious building. Stained glass and a beautiful cream exterior. So despite the weather, what I do like about Douglas, and I absolutely want to give their tourism board 10 out of 10 for this, is they have a lot of information around the city. So you can see here reading a bit about all the monuments. Here's a wooden sculpture on a wooden bench waiting for the theatre, I guess, to open. And here is a statue as well of Sir Norman Wisdom, the comedian who also resided in the Isle of Man, or on the Isle of Man, and he's an absolute national hero, bizarrely, in Albania, which I also visited earlier in the year. He was one of the only comedians or entertainers whose shows were allowed to be shown in Albania, certainly from the Western world. So there you go, Sir Norman Wisdom, overlooking the promenade here in Douglas. And more TT races, or maybe they're practicing for next year. And there's a dog. I've seen lots of dogs so far on my visit. I've not yet seen the Manx cat, which is of course famous for having no tail. The only cat breed in the world with no tail, and scientists aren't exactly sure why that is. They do know it's some sort of genetic mutation, but I've not yet seen a cat, and I really want to see one. Next to the theatre there's also an arcade here, a little cafe, and there's a war monument as well, in remembrance of the soldiers who fought in the 2 world wars. Here's some of the shows you can come and watch at the, not just the Gaiety Theatre, but also here Villa Marina, and some more shows here as well. And right next to the posters here you can enter a park, which is quite big, and there's no one here. No, they're probably hiding away from the weather. I, on the other hand, have only got a few hours left in the town, so I have to make the most of it and obviously show you guys some interesting things here, like Liu. Liu is a fearless and wise dragon. Over here. That's the side of a theatre, and there's a war memorial monument, and over there's a hill with some more houses there in Douglas. So would I be able to live here in Douglas? I think I probably could, to be honest. Like I said, it doesn't feel different at all from being a UK city or a UK town, seaside town, and it's got all the high street names you can think of that you would need, and you may not feel homesick as a result of it. There's nothing that's really unfamiliar, so in terms of a culture shock, that will be very limited. Actually, what I would be concerned about is traveling here by plane. It was a very bumpy landing, to say the least, a very hard landing. And it's probably because the airport here in the Isle of Man is built right on the edge of the island. It's almost like the runway literally sits at the end of the island. And as a result, you get a lot of winds and from the Irish Sea, and it will be a very bumpy ride for most of the time, I'd imagine. It's a bit more isolated and tough to get to, of course. So you can travel by plane, which I did from Gatwick Airport, or other options such as Heathrow Airport, some flights from Ireland, I think Birmingham, and also obviously the ferry, which you can take. Weather aside and bumpy landing, I actually quite like Douglas. I think I could spend quite a bit of time here. There may not be a lot to do on the face of it, but I explained earlier about other parts of the island you can visit, and if I had more time I'd probably want to do that. So the Bee Gees are of course also from the Isle of Man, In case you thought they were Australian, they're not, they are Manx. And the Manx language is also very interesting. There's not a lot of people that speak it. In fact, in 2009, UNESCO called it an extinct language, or declared it an extinct language. And there was a huge uproar from people, letters and phone calls, and eventually UNESCO changed it to a critically endangered language. So there's only, like I said, a few hundred or so that still speak it on the island. The island's last native speaker of Manx passed away in the 1970s. So yeah, just a quiet stroll here in Douglas town centre. There are some familiar high street names, but also some bespoke Manx places here. Tourist shop, traditional Isle of Man square rock you can buy here. Isle of Man TT Racers mugs. You can see the Triskelion, symbol of the Isle of Man since at least the 13th century. Hi again.
Hi.
I told you I would get a fridge magnet.
Okay.
Yesterday, yeah. I think I've decided on the one as well. Yeah, let's go for that one. I'll take this one, please.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's interesting there. Teapot clock. Yeah, you would have seen they use pound currency here, but it's actually the Manx pound. It's not the UK British pound. So if you pay with UK money here, pound sterling, you will get Manx pound change. And the Manx pound you can't use in the United Kingdom. You can use Great Britain pound sterling here on the island. So it's best to probably pay contactless when you visit. So you're not stuck with any coins you can't use back in England or Scotland or anywhere else in the UK. So, just checking where we are. Over here, town centre shopping. Let's walk all the way down to the quay, I think, and go check out what it looks like. All right. Got Market Hall here, 1899. And this is the North Quay. Market Hill. Lots of yachts and boats here in the quay. Gorgeous backdrop there of a cliff, and you have some Tudor style buildings here as well. So this Tudor building, I think, is just called the British. The Union Jack there. Yeah. Here's another colourful dolphin. Here's a very useful glossary, the A to Y of Manx. And it will tell you everything you need to know about the island. Offshore Finance Centre of Excellence. Manannan, which I also talked about. We've got the TT races. And if you're interested in seeing the island by steam train, this is the place to come. The old steam railway station here. And some information about it. Maybe next time I'm on the island we can do that. The Looks to be a great experience. Yeah, wind is starting to pick up. At least it's not raining. We've had our fair share of weather issues today, but we made it. And on that note, guys, I'm saying goodbye to you. Thanks for joining me here in Douglas, capital of the Isle of Man. If you haven't done so yet, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching my videos, and I'll see you again soon.